Welcome back. It's time for Talk Time. Oil theft is what we are talking about this morning, like I told you earlier. Well, Nigeria is losing a lot of them to the stealing of the commodity that brings the most money to the country. A report released by the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, NNPC, says Nigeria lost a total of $10.9 billion or 2.18 trillion naira to oil theft from 2009 to 2011. And the Navy told a Senate committee in March that the nation currently loses 100,000 barrels of oil, which equates to 1.18 billion naira every day to oil thieves. Now, the NNPC says it has a plan to end oil theft in 8 months. Drones are central to that plan. In the studio with me are oil and gas analyst Bala Zaka and social commentator Shola Omolayo. Thank you for your time in the studio.
Good morning. Thank you. Morning.
All right, now, what do you feel about the new plan by the NNPC to deploy drones to check, of course, monitor oil pipelines in the country?
Well, I want to believe that this must have been an idea that they know they could work with. But I don't see it working now, because you can't work with a kind of a system that is not going to involve the security agent of our country, because you need people you can trust to man some of this equipment. And if you cannot trust your manpower, how do you want to trust the equipment that you want to put in place? That's just it.
All right, so what do you believe so as well? Do you share his
thought? Generally, you see, when you talk about stealing, like in this case, crude oil theft, you know, stealing generally is economic sabotage. And whatever you can do to curtail or to bring economic sabotage to the barest minimum will be a welcome idea. But the only thing is how many strategies will you bring together? Because generally people who are involved in stealing are disloyal people. They have no respect for their countries. So when you talk about stealing, and in this case crude oil stealing, I mean, before you deploy the mechanisms, you understand, you have to look at the stakeholders involved. The stakeholders involved in this case are, one, the investor, right? Because there is what we call cost of capital when you invest. You have the government, because there is a need for revenue to come so that you take care of the country. Then you have the community of first impact, or the environment of first impact. These three stakeholders must be taken into consideration. Then you will now start deploying the mechanisms, because economic security is national security. So stealing, which is economic sabotage, is actually tampering with our economic security. So you need three basic mechanisms, just like you had three stakeholders. You need preventive control measures. You need detective control measures, and you need corrective. That simply means you must be able to prevent the criminal from even attempting to come in. But if the criminal is able to beat your control your preventive control mechanism, you should be able to detect him at the point of committing the economic sabotage, in this case, stealing.
Why for the reason for the drone?
Exactly. So if you are not able to control that, you should be able to correct it. So you have preventive, detective, and corrective. When you talk about drones generally, a drone is based, in the context we're talking about now, a drone is an aircraft without a pilot. And as my colleague was saying, there are certain things you probably need to take into consideration. Because a place like the Niger Delta, you're talking about probably 6,000 different creeks. So you have the creeks. Then you have the vessels now that will be on the waters. But that when you have the vessels on the waters and you want to checkmate that, that means the criminal has succeeded in committing the act. He has been able to beat your preventive mechanisms. And you were probably not able to check him, and he's already going away. So you are now probably detecting him. So we should look at everything from a broad perspective. If possible, prevent it even. Because the drones are basically probably to detect. Why not prevent?
And so when you look at it from... has not been able to prevent.
Yeah, well, when you say stealing, you know, it's a combination of many things. You know, we were looking at three stakeholders. We look at the community of first impact. That's the host community, or the community through which the pipeline passing through. Okay. So any of them now qualify to be called, you know, a community of impact. At that point, the level of education to get them in as a stakeholder with the government is very important. You know, then when you look at even the investor himself, you know, that expends so much money, you know, and has what we call cost of capital or loans to pay back. Among investors, do you have likely staff that could be saboteurs and traitors?
Okay, so yes, talking about sabotage really in the NNPC, we've talked about it so many times, Mr. Omolayo. Like you said earlier, really, it will amount to absolutely nothing. The NNPC,
yeah, because in time past, we've always been coming out with policies of how to put a stop to how our crude is being taken away. Some of this petroleum going through the land borders, all of these things, they come to play, and you see the government of the day telling you they are increasing the prices of this material, all because they want to curtail the stealing from Nigeria. We're even talking of the local stealing, which from our local market, not to talk of the one at the international level. So even if we are going to talk about stealing, on what ground are we discussing? Is it the internal stealing or the one that goes offshore? We must be able to differentiate where do we want to mount our kind of a pressure on. Do you want to stop the stealing of the petrol, in quotes, that goes through our land borders almost at every second? Or you want to stop the stealing of the crude that is an high-tech thing that involves this, the other states outside the shore of Nigeria? So I don't believe that one government, because you have been given an appointment, you just wake up one morning, you want to tell us that this is what you want to do, and the guys you want to chase are beginning to know the level and the capacity of the equipment you are putting in place. And I keep asking, if you talk about stealing, it involves the security network. You see, in Nigeria, we always want to just climb the tree somehow, not going through the bottom. There are elementary rules that needs to follow. You have the security agent that are always at the bed of this thing. The navies are there at the high sea. What are they doing? What is their problem? Why is it that they've not been able to arrest or curtail some of these guys?
And then the ones that are supposed to prevent vandalism.
If you have to talk about prevention, these are the people, the manpower. I think it should be there already, or is there already. Something is going wrong. These are the area. These are the people. These are the stakeholders that we need to bring in. Okay, on our land within, if it is curtailing the oil, because if you talk about the crude oil, you're also talking about the petrol that is being sabotaged every day on all our borders. We have a porous border in this country. We know that. If we cannot even manage within, how do you think we are going to curtail the one on the high sea? These are the problems. We must come to a round table. Some of the directors, who knows? Some of the directors that have been heading this NNPC in time past, bring all of them together. Let there be a kind of a conference. Experts that knows about some of these things. Let them come together, bring in the agent that matters in this institution. The Navy, the Air Force can be included, and the customs who stays on our land borders. Their role is so important here, because they must tell us what has been going on. Because moving these steps we're talking about, it's not just carrying 4 liters of fuel or crude. We are talking of barrels, trucks moving. They are not magicians. They travel on all these routes on the high sea. You must be very rich to engage yourself in this oil industry.
And then, of course, according to the report by Native, like Mr. Omolayo has said as well, influential people are behind the vandalism of pipelines and, of course, stealing of Nigeria's oil. So, yes, and there's no way we can't talk about sabotage, because it will be difficult for a stranger to know the system of a house without someone from inside giving information to such stranger now. So we've heard so many times about NNPC staff being the ones behind vandalism somehow. So how is it even going to work if you still have some of these people in place and then you want to deploy?
You see, technically, you know, I may not subscribe to that feeling or believing that an NNPC technical staff will be involved in vandalism. An NNPC staff is likely to be corrupt, you know, but definitely not involved in physical vandalism.
So, no, not physical. It could be through information.
Exactly. So you see,
because we hear that there are particular periods of time that petrol is pumped through this pipeline.
Yeah, that's
so how
why
do
we're
these
talking
people,
about
these
deployment of the
know?
necessary mechanisms. But you see, the strange thing about life is this: sometimes when you go trying to do very complex things, you understand, you will be shocked that all you need to do is to educate people about the implication of what they are even trying to do. By mere education and continuous education, you will change the psyche of a lot of people. The first thing is just bring out this product and analyze it for people. In the previous political dispensation, right, we were made to understand that we were losing about 400,000 barrels per day. The first thing you need to do is, a lot of people will think 400,000 barrels is probably like 20 buckets of crude oil. Break it down, and this is where the education comes. When you multiply that 400,000 by 42, you will convert it from barrels to gallons, right? That will give you almost 18. You understand? It will almost give you about 180 point something barrels. But by the time you multiply the, gallons, by the time you multiply the gallons and now want to convert it to barrels, that will give you about 67.2 million gallons. This is now the education. A tanker of petrol is about 33,000 liters. When you divide that 67.2 by the capacity of a tanker, that will give you about 2,000 tankers. This is where you now start helping Nigerians to know the implications of what they are losing, even from their community, even if somebody is bribing them. That simply means from that 400,000 barrels, Nigeria loses 2,000 tankers every day.
And that's just an estimate.
Yes, and from the report you gave of Neiti now, which says we are losing an average of 100,000 barrels. If you convert that to tankers, we are losing 500 tankers of crude oil per day. Then that simply means the local community is needed, right, to help in making sure we checkmate and block these criminals. Once you start from there, that you will start checkmating this. Some of this crude oil are stolen and refined locally. In your education, try to let them understand that that thing they think is a local refinery is not a local refinery. It's a pollution plant. It's a toxification plant. It's a plant that is filled up with what we call carcinogenic things. You understand? So all that is happening is if you think somebody is coming to your location, picking this thing, you know, and refining them and you are getting crude oil, no. You have a pollution plant in your community. Because at the end of the day, what the person does, he boils this thing up, takes what we call the light distillates, all the other things get into the atmosphere, the gaseous aspect, you know, pollute the atmosphere in your community, not anybody's community, comes back and cause you all kinds of bronchial problem. You suffer from cancer in your community. That's when it destroys your roof. Then the other ones that are middle distillates and heavy distillates will pour on the ground in your community. That's how, you see, now we are talking about educating and helping these guys as stakeholders. It will pour on the ground in your community and destroy what we call your groundwaters. So you will not have good well waters. The few that percolates and gets to the river will do what? Destroy aquatic plants. So now you cannot farm. When you get to the rivers again, you don't have fishes.
Ogoni people know what they are going through because of this.
So when you look at that now, you suffer on the land, you cannot farm. You suffer on the waters, you don't have fishes. Even birds that comes to feed on those fishes suffer from what we call hypothermia. So you are losing on both sides. In the atmosphere, you are suffering from cancerous gases. On land, you cannot farm. You cannot have good drinking water. Then on the river, you are also finished. So from that point alone, the community must be a stakeholder.
All right. Okay, Mr. Omolayo, talking about the community being a stakeholder, in a statement attributed to Dr. Ibeka Chukwu of NNPC, said that much, that there is need for Nigerian communities now to understand that these pipelines are theirs, really. They vandalize them. They are vandalizing the future of their children. They have to be part of the move to protect the pipelines, rather, and let the vandals know that enough is enough.
Yeah, you see, most of the time when I hear us speak, and we give analysis of how things are being run or how things to be run, it makes me laugh. A poor man doesn't understand what is called English. A poor man wants to be fed. How? At times he doesn't even care. You are educating the community. Fine. But will it stop what we are talking about? Some of the time, the community are not even aware of what is going on. Not until when an arrest is being made. Okay? If you talk of community, the question is, this theft that is going on is not within the community. That is why I'm asking, which of the theft are we talking about? Is it the local one of this 50 jerry can, or the ones that go on high sea? 50 jerry can,
definitely
not, petrol.
Not that.
No, let's know, because
we know it's like a business now, okay, in an area in
so
Lagos.
If it's an
they call petrol pure water.
All right, that is
so
why I'm asking that. Okay,
very big business over
if you look at the way it is being analyzed on the area of crude, you will know that those who are involved are the big guys within and outside. Okay, so it then means if you are talking of crude, we must bring in experts, those who have worked in NNPC before, those who are there now, and will now agree on policies that needs to be put in place, because you need to prevent it, as it's been said. And who are the people that will play the first role? It's a security agent. It is the government. Before you begin to educate the people, look, when you are hungry, poverty has no base. Poverty will not listen to sound education. That is why an armed robber does not care how much he sells your property, as long as he can get it. Okay? Now we are dealing with people who care less about what you are going to make of your own economy. They are taking it for their own selfish reason. Some of this state they are taking it to is because they don't have it. We should be able to sit down and talk to neighbors that we know they don't have this crude at all. They once told us that they are increasing the oil, I mean the petrol, because if they will increase it locally, it will stop this sabotage of taking it out. But if you don't have a thing where something is scarce, the cost will go higher. Okay? The cost is going to go higher. So some of these people can cut off, not coming to you directly because you have increased your sales locally. They will deal with those who they know they can bring it to them on a shortcut and still sell it even at the rate. If you are not careful, they will sell it lesser than what you are giving it to your people. Right. So I want to believe that. I still stand on this ground that, look, before we'll be able to say anything at all, the security agent must let us know what is going on within them, because it is going to take somebody who is highly mobile to come against these people.
All right. We'll talk more about this. Apologies, Mr. Zaka. We are talking about the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation's statement that it has a plan, of course, to end oil theft in 8 months. So drones are central to the NNPC's plan. But what exactly are they? We asked a drone pilot, James Amuta.
Basically, when you talk about drones, you're talking about unmanned aerial vehicles, you know, or any RC aircraft, any remote controlled aircraft. You know, there are different types of drones and stuff, but over the years people have just come to refer to anything that is controlled with a remote that flies as drones. Well, technically those are not, that's not the proper term. a drone is any vehicle that can fly, any aircraft that can fly without a pilot physically being in that aircraft.
Well, we now have from Port Harcourt a supply chain management expert with more than a decade experience in the oil and gas industry, Biebele Arimie. Thank you for your time on the program. Now, what do you think about the NNPC's plan to use drones? Oh. Can you hear me, Biebele? Are you there? Thank you. Good morning. Let me ask you again to be sure you're there. What do you think about NNPC's plan to deploy drones to monitor pipelines in the country? Well, it seems we're having issues connecting with Biebele Arimie. We'll still try to connect with him for his own contribution to what we are discussing on the show today. All right, you wanted to say something.
I mean, in line with what Mr. Amuta was saying, you know, like at the beginning of this discussion, we also try to describe, you know, drones in the context of what is going on now. You know, in the context of what is going on now, a drone typically is an unmanned aircraft, right? Or an unmanned aerial surveillance equipment, like he rightly explained. But that's just one. And that was why I was saying, if you're going to use drones for aerial surveillance, remember we have about 6,000 creeks, according to an analysis by the Nigerian Navy. Those 6,000 creeks, you cannot, from the atmosphere there, you know, be able to monitor everything. That simply means you need another stakeholder to help you. And you need to cross-fertilize knowledge and information. And that was why we were emphasizing on the community. And this community is not just where you have the crude oil, but even where you have the passage of the pipeline. So we are basically talking about that ownership, right? So NNPC coming up with drones, it's something like a fantastic idea. But the question is this: drones are to help in detecting. Then you also have, I mean, a collection of equipment and systems we call SCADA. That is System Control and Data Acquisition. And that simply means you use this system basically to control remote areas. And that simply means you can go to where you have the area of extraction, like the oil fields. Yes, educate the community on the implications of the pollutions and other things. But as the pipelines are passing through all these creeks, through the thick forest, you need another system of control. And that's where that SCADA comes in. So you have what we call aerial surveillance, you know, where the drones will come in. Then you also have control system in offices where you monitor what we call pressure drops. Because pressure drop simply means if the crude oil, whether or refined product is supposed to be moving, at every point in time, if you see a drop in pressure in your control room, you should be able to know that something is happening. And this SCADA will be able to tell you the point at which that thing is happening. So anything can happen for pressure drops to happen. It could be pipe integrity issues. It could be tampering. And like my colleague here was talking about.
All right, we'll talk more about this. We have Biebele Arimie joining us again now from Port Harcourt. Thank you for your time. I hope you can hear me now. I was asking earlier your take on NNPC's decision to deploy drones to monitor pipelines in the country. Oh, well, it's still the same issue. We'll hope to get clearer audio. We'll still try again to get you to talk to us, hopefully, before the end of this segment. Arimie Biebele, of course, an expert in the oil and gas industry with so many years of experience. Apologies, you can make your points.
I wish we actually got Mr. Biebele, you know, on the line. He will have also helped, you know. We were also talking about stealing, and we were just looking at the community as if probably it is likely to be minute. Sometimes it is the well-crafted and the well-syndicated stealing that gets these communities employed. By the time the big thieves, right, are able to tap their own and they go with the quantity they are supposed to go with, then the remnants are left for the communities to do what? To pilfer on. What we need to do is to plan and come for ways for total blockage and control. And that simply means we should understand that sometimes you can steal this crude oil by piping it effectively and having everything bunkered. That is one strategy. Then you have another strategy where you deploy the communities, you know, and the communities become your agents in how to do what? Cut into these pipelines. You understand? And that's why most of the time, by the time it is tampered with within the communities, what you are normally left with is pollution. But the well-crafted and syndicated ones are normally have this pipeline effectively screwed into, well-piped and bunkered out.
Okay, so Mr. Omolaya, let me just what do you feel really about another statement, another plan really by the NNPC, according to Dr. Kachiku, that NNPC is planning to be changing the staffing of the corporation, of course, maybe at least within 90 days, the staff in the loading bay area of crude oil export terminals. Would that work?
I don't know why we keep how do I put it, making a trial in an institution that has been existing for over years. That is why you cannot find an NNPC director, executive that has stayed in an office for 15 or 20 years. It's not done in other institutions. If you want expert, if you want good stuff in any of this institution, you must continue to learn on the job. You go, you put your men on training, you put your men on seminar, so that at the end of the day, they will grow. And how you bring in a director, because of the policy of the day or because of the politics that is being played, you just remove that person. When they are trying to perfect a policy, you remove him and bring in another person. That person comes in again with his own idea. After some time, you will discover that, okay, because I don't like his face, he's too fast in the things he's doing, they remove him again and bring in another person. We've not been able to allow professionalism to display itself in that NNPC. I believe that government is trying to, I don't know if this government is going to continue in that act, but I believe that if we can just trust some of these guys, if we can trust them and allow them to do their thing, yes, that could be stealing. That is why. But
they've been there for so many years and they've not been able to do anything. That's why some of them have been changed.
If I may come in, you see, if I may come in, one of the things that have actually been making NNPC not to look professionally competent, like probably Petrobras of Brazil, Petronas of Malaysia, and Saudi Aramco of Saudi Arabia, is honestly political interference, because we are all Nigerians and we need to be honest to ourselves. NNPC is not into political governance. NNPC is not a political entity. NNPC is what? Is an agency or a parastatal of government that is domiciled with the responsibility of looking at that oxygen of Nigerian revenue. So it should be treated with respect. If you look at it, in the last 38 years, because NNPC was set up in 1977, from 1977 to now is 38 years. In the last 38 years, we have had about 16 group managing directors. But that's not even where we were going to because of time. In the last 5 years, we have had 6 different group managing directors. We had Sanusi Barkindo, Shehu Ladan, Austin Onio, Andrew Yakubu, Joseph Dawa, and now Dr. Kachiku in 5 years. Yes. The position of a group managing director is the position of a strategic thinker and planner. As he said, there is no way you can be having high turnover of chief executives like that and expect corporate stability. If this television station is having managing directors every year, there will be no stability.
I was even talking about the directors that were
no, but what we're saying, I'm yet to come to even the directors. If any university is having vice chancellors every year, that university will collapse. If every country is having presidents every year, that country will be balkanized. And you know the bad thing? Every time a group managing director will be eased out, all the group executive directors will be fired. All the GGMs will be fired. How do you intend to have corporate stability.
Because of the statement accredited to the Senate President, Bukola Saraki, saying that NNPC is practically the hub of corruption in Nigeria.
No, but when you call it the hub, you define corruption also in context. What you succeeded in doing as a government of a country in the previous dispensation is you created a situation of scare and instability. If a group managing director comes today, the next day everybody will just be laughing because they know the next year he's going to be fired. And that's why we are hoping and praying that see the position of a group managing director as a position of a strategic thinker. A long-term thinker and a planner needs time. And that's why when they come, they take the first 1 or 2 years to look at what is happening. The third year, they now strategize. Then the fourth and fifth year, they now plant the seed of growth in that institution and bequeath a good legacy for their successors. Yes, that's how you do. Another thing you can do, again, we are not saying you cannot have dead woods within a system, whether corporate system, private, or whatever. What you do is this. Come up with your new strategies, just like the way computer age was introduced and computers. Those who cannot cope with the new equipment, new strategies, you can gallantly ease them out and reward them.
Just have a clean system.
Exactly, have a clean system. So you have system, ways you clean the system. But if you create, like we said, labor turnover is not good anywhere. You start, I mean, we've had cases in Nigeria where a group managing director will go and be discussing strategies and his PA will call him and say, sir, you've been replaced. It doesn't work like that. So there are so many reasons why Nigeria needs to clean up. In fact, our advice to this government is this. Now that we have somebody like Dr. Kachukwu and he's forming his team, please give him that time. So that in 4 or 5 years' time or 6 years' time, you can compare him with the group managing director of Saudi Aramco in Saudi Arabia. If you go to like Saudi Aramco, right, the way Saudi Aramco is being run as a commercial entity is different from the activities of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Independence.
Exactly. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is more of a religious kingdom, is more of a kingdom on its own, but the Saudi Aramco is seen more as a commercial hub and an entity, and that's why today they are building the biggest refinery in the world. That's why if you go there, you will see so many Yoruba people. You see an Igbo man, you see a Pakistani. That is how you run corporations. We are appealing to this government. You decided that you have analyzed the credentials of somebody like Kachukwu, Dr. Kachukwu, and you feel he has the requisite integrity and management acumen to lead NNPC. Please, remove political interference. Give him that leeway. In 5 years' time, a lot of us believe the system can be cleaned up.
Okay, all right. Let's get more information now about drones before we take your calls.
People in the real estate sector, for real estate agents, they use drones for survey, for mapping, and a lot of stuff. So drones have very useful applications, even for search and rescue. Yeah, that's one law enforcement application for search and rescue. You know, you have a car, car jumps off a bridge and then, lands in one dense forest or inside a swamp and stuff, and it's not easily accessible, but you need to access the damage first, know if there are survivors and things like that, and map and find a route to get there. So you deploy these drones, and then they give you a real-time video of the situation, traffic report, and a lot of stuff. So yes, when it comes to NNPC deploying drones to stop oil theft and things like that, well, it's a little bit tricky when you say to stop oil theft. I think, to monitor the pipelines, perfect application.
And that's the question I want to ask you, Mr. Amodaya, first of all, before I come to you, Mr. Zaka. The drones really will monitor, but what effect will it have now? Because, okay, let's assume that the drone is hovering on a particular area and sees vandals in action, vandalizing an oil pipeline. How soon will security operatives get there to stop
I keep
to stop
asking
it?
you, before you start using this equipment, for God's sake, can you first deploy your manpower. Please. The computer is good, but the guy that is going to mount the computer, have you trained him? Has he been trained at all? You can come up with ideas. Yes, I love my child.
But we don't have enough information on how far the NNPC has gone before
See,
now
you
making
trust
this
this country.
announcement.
This guy was just appointed or nominated, and he has this idea in his mindset that if I can just have the opportunity of coming here, or somebody has brought in a proposal, and that is what we are seeing. All of this grammar and analysis are good. But what we know first is, please, can we just trust these guys for the first time that you are staying in this office for good 4 years? The result afterward will be checked after 4 years. Let him be there. Okay? When you have allowed that, we need to use our own institution to back them up. Which institution do I keep talking about? The security agent. These guys cannot do these things on their own. You talk of corruption. The NNPC will work with the drivers that will truck this thing out of anywhere they want to do it. Okay? And you have guys, security agent, that will pilot some of these trucks, either by train, by whatever. So, what we are saying is this. For us to curtail this thing now, to start the operation of curtailing this act, the first thing we need to do is to involve all the security agents that are necessary. First, the custom. Let us call them. What has been your problem at the land borders in respect of some of this truck that passes?
The vandals operate for hours and security
you understand?
people won't go
we have
there.
not even gotten to that.
All right, apologies,
Mr.
Amola, you continue in a moment. Let's speak Aminu's call. Apologies for you for letting you for letting you wait for so long. Go ahead with your contribution, Aminu.
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
My contribution about this vandalism of pipeline is people have to cooperate to the government so that wherever they get any leakage that they have been vandalized the pipe, so that we report it to security agents, especially this what's the name of this organization? I mean, this not police. This.
I see.
Anyway, anyway, a person can report those that have been seen any that kind of thing, so that they have to be rushing and cooperate to the government in order to fight against this vandalization. So that's my contribution.
Okay.
Has to ensure that wherever they find those that are doing this rubbish, so that they have to go to any either police station.
Thank you, Aminu, for your contribution. We could barely hear what you were saying anyway because of it. So I really implore you all, if you're still intending to call us on the show, to reduce the volume of your TV set and step away from it for us to have a clear audio, really. It won't be nice for you to just call and waste your call credit without actually communicating and tell us what you want to tell us about the topic we're discussing today. Deploying drones to monitor pipelines in the country. NNPC's next line of action. So I'll pose the same question to you. What's the essence of using drones? And then upon detecting vandalism,
yes,
how soon will security people, and Mr. Mule has been saying it over again and over again.
Well, Amuta spoke, and we analyzed drones also at the beginning, and I mentioned something called SCADA, Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition. It's a collection of systems. If you look at the summary of basically what we have been talking about, I see drones coming in as detective mechanisms. But when we were talking about safeguards and control mechanisms, we started with preventive, right? Then we went to detective and corrective. The first thing is prevent the criminal. And how do you prevent the criminal? One, you look at also your stakeholders. The first stakeholder is the community of impact or environment of impact. If it is outside the Niger Delta, then you are free from the 6,000 creeks. From the 6,000 creeks, engage the community and tell them the implication, whether it's a petty criminal or it is where you have syndicated criminals. Because there are two different things. The petty criminals are those who steal for local refining and having pollution plants. Then the syndicated criminals are those who will carefully, even if it is the technology of underground welding, they can weld and have pipes, you know, bunkering into a vessel. But you must engage what the community, and when we say the community, you just don't go and talk to everybody. Tell them the implication. And as somebody said, as my colleague said, he said everybody is there, is hungry. But it is you as a government. Make them stakeholders, right? If they participate and you tell them the implication, you must have a way of appreciating and rewarding the community.
Okay.
If you do that, then you are able to control that. Then the aerial surveillance that...
Okay, before you continue to tell us what you want to say, anyway, we have Abdullahi waiting to talk to us on the line. Thank you for joining us, Abdullahi, at this time. Go ahead with your comment.
Yes, I would like to comment what Bala has said. This is something that involves the whole country. The country has failed. Its institutions have failed. That is why for you to tackle the problem of vandalism, you have to involve all the sectors, the security sectors, the regulatory sectors, whatever that needs to be done. But having drones alone cannot tackle the problem. We have to look at other various institutions, the SSS, the levy, and even the communities. We have to de-incentivize, the factors that make them to go into those things by alleviating poverty, trying to put in such things that will cater for their welfare. So that is my just intervention.
Thank you very much, Abdullahi, for your contribution. Now, Mr. Omolayo, yes, it all somehow boils down to poverty, but that is for those that are vandalizing the pipelines locally. But what about those exporting crude oil?
Okay, those who are exporting crude oil, that means that how far can this drone go? The capacity of the drone put in place. And yet, I'll still go back. You put your drone, you detect something is going on, who do you call next? Is it not the same security agent? And you must incube them, which is, if it's going to be happening at the offshore, which is at the high sea level, then the Navy must be prepared.
Yeah, the NNPC says it's planning to equip the Navy more.
You can imagine the grammar is planning. What can we do now?
And should it be the Navy alone?
That's it. No, they know their area of expert. And I want to call the NNPC to come up with what I would call the NNPC task force. NNPC task force that will involve all the security agents of this country. Be you Navy, be you the civil
NSCDC.
CDC, okay, the Civil Defense Corps. They should be involved. And the custom should be involved, because these are areas where you will find loopholes. These are areas where you can find escape of some of these criminals. Okay? If you can manage these people, they will tell you what is needed. And you must give these people a kind of care, a package that will be enough for them to know that you cannot be deceived or lure into a business, because you are talking of billions and billions of dollars business. And you now keep a guy on the high sea. The government is not feeding him, like he's saying that we should involve the community, a community that has no light for the past, how many years now? Almost 30 years. A community that has no pipe-borne water, a community that has nothing to show for what is taken away from them. You want them to be loyal to you? I think it's not going to be, maybe we are thinking, this must be a long-time program. But for now, because it's obvious that that is what Nigeria is depending upon. What can we do now to stop this thing? Do you know what we are talking about here? Millions of dollars going every day. All right, Mr. Modayo, we have Biebele Arimi joining us again. We hope the network is good this time around for us to talk to you. You're joining us from Port Harcourt, oil and gas experts. Thank you for your time. Now, what do you think about the plan of NNPC to start deploying drones to monitor their pipelines? Well, it seems the network doesn't want Arimi to talk to us, really. It keeps happening the third time. Thank you anyway for trying. At least it was really a good effort from your end to want to really talk to us. Thank you. We would have loved to talk to you as well, to get your own perspective, especially from where you are. But Harcourt, one of Nigeria's crude oil producing states. Thank you anyway. We hope we can still get you if it's possible before we wrap up the segment. We have just some few minutes left. To be a Biebele Arimi, oil and gas experts with many years of experience. All right, so Mr. Zaka, it's so worrying really, because according to NNPC, close to 350 persons have died because of activities of oil vandals in the country. For you to know that they know what they are getting, they know what they are gaining, and they are ready to kill for it.
No, apart from knowing, you see, it has to do with ignorance, you understand, because the consequences is there at the end of the day. I wish Biebele has been given the opportunity, because I would have been appreciative if he had talked to us about the implications of things happening on the land, how the biodegradation is going on there. Then he will take us to the shallow waters and the deep waters. That was why I needed
Before you
his
continue, Mr. Zaka, really, Ogaba is calling us from Benue State. Thank you for your time. Ogaba, go ahead. Your contribution now.
Yes, Aziza, good morning, and regards to your guest in the studio. From all that have been said, I want us to look at how easy it is for these guys to break into this pipeline. I mean, in this age of high tech, is there no way they can design these pipelines to be difficult, or create some kind of difficulty, or to create some kind of a timeline when you are breaking into this pipeline? Because we are talking about technology here now. I think in the design from the beginning, because these guys there, a lot of corruption is going on. That is why it's built into this the design that it's not difficult to break into this pipeline. Let us make it difficult for these guys. There is a way it can be done. I mean, this is at the time of technology.
Okay, thank you very much, Ogaba. Some pipelines are even in the surface.
Let me go a bit technical now. You see, I've been talking about SCADA. I said supervisory control and data acquisition. And you have what we call control rooms. You understand? Everywhere you go, these pipelines are not supposed to be hidden away from people as if they are spirits. These are economic deployment tools to better the lives of Nigerians. These pipelines are basically conveyors of either refined crude oil, or the crude oil itself, or gas. If you go to some places, pipelines you see them moving. And you go to in the Niger Delta area on land, you see them, they create areas and they create setbacks. And they will say high pressured pipelines. It is not supposed to be hidden. I think it is only from this angle that I will understand with people who say for economic reasons, you will tell people go and cut that thing. And sometimes when they go and cut it, it's just gas they will see. And you can't hold gas. But by the time they cause that sabotage, we will lose on electricity, because the discos, will not have gas.
Yeah, and
and the Gencos will not be able to generate.
Given that pipeline vandalism has reduced. That's why electricity supply
yes, this is the principle.
The
I didn't want to say it, but I've practiced there for more than 25 years. I've worked on land. I've worked in this Ogoni land, in some of the fields. I've worked on swamp locations, and I've worked deep offshore. It's the system. If you go to this other country, like we say Saudi Arabia, you go to Petrobras. If you go to Saudi Aramco today, you see pipelines moving 20, 30, 40 kilometers. You're not supposed to tamper with them. And there are what we call...
If you're not hungry.
Yeah, well, we have what we call control rooms. In your control rooms, basically what you do is you monitor pressure, just like the pressure of water. You understand? And there is what we call pressure drop principle. So if at any point there is a leakage, pressure will go down. Just like your gauge. If the gauge of your petrol tank is working, the moment something is going down, you see it. Then you monitor. And these principles also, you can also track it even with the distance. But when you have traitors and saboteurs along the line, they constitute economic pathogens, right? That is the thing that is happening. But what we are saying is this. In the new dispensation, let everybody be a partaker. Like I told you, the other day I was on air with a naval personnel. He said they have about 6,000 creeks in the Niger Delta. That simply means, and you have naval pilots. And as you can corroborate from what Mr. Amuta was also saying, he said they go up to dictate. But what we want is to be able to prevent. Let the criminal not even be able to get to that point. And because you use Nigerians, whether illiterates or educated, to perpetrate this thing, we should be able to prevent these things. So from the community, educate them on how they should be partakers to prevent that. Then incentivize them, as my colleague is saying. Then for the typical oil and gas industry worker, a technical person, let him know that he is an economic saboteur. Then for the government as a whole, honestly, the government should be socially responsible to its people. Because you say, okay, don't go to Arepo. We go to Arepo, you see destruction, you deploy community task force, and at the end of the day, they are still wallowing in squalors. It does not make sense. These things are very simple. You go to other countries, it's the same. They don't hide the pipelines. The pipelines shouldn't be spirit. They are economic equipment. They are economic deployment tools for your country. They are not supposed to be hidden. But poverty has made people to go and want to cut this pipeline.
Because people have not been enjoying the benefits
exactly,
of
but you see, most of the time when you say this thing, within the economy...
All right, apologies. We have Emmanuel waiting for us on the line. It seems we've lost Emmanuel's call. I totally apologize to you there. I got engrossed in what Mr. Zaka was saying. Please call back if you can before we end the segment of this segment, really, so you can tell us what you want to tell us. I apologize again. Emmanuel, you called from Jos. All right, Mr. Omolayo, your last take, really, effectiveness and then drone deployment.
Well, at the end of the day, he agrees, excuse me, at the end of the day, he agrees with me that poverty is the basis of all of this crisis within, because theft is an internal crisis within. And the offshore issue, it involves the experts who knows about this thing, and it involves the big guys who can get this money anywhere in dollars. The people, where you get this thing from, if you want them to be the first stakeholder, you want to put trust on them, let them know. How would they know? Place value on them, not value on the land. Place value on the people where you get these resources from. Let them know they are part and parcel of this whole thing. And you want to put a stop to this. And if you want to put a stop to it, move into their territory. Involve them by providing for their needs. Show concern that for the first time, the government of the day knows what you have done for us. In the time past, you may have been humiliated by the kind of attitude we are showing, or the resources depriving you of your life. But this time around, we want to bring in change. You begin to clean up all those pollution that you have around them. They see these things with their eyes. You go in to make provision for their basic need. Water, light, security, schools, concerns of health, healthcare. When they begin to see this thing, that is when you will now bring in the education.
Even job creation, because many fishermen there in the riverine areas in Niger Delta have nothing to do with it.
You must create provision, okay? Subsidize their life by giving some stipends. I can assure you that will be the beginning. As you begin to do that, then you begin to preach to them. Why? Every leader, every religious leader will bring in a gift before they start preaching.
All right.
So if the government of the day can start with that, then every other thing will follow.
Okay, so Mr. Zaka, your last take as well.
There is poverty in the land, you know, and poverty is an economic issue. But that must not justify criminality. But it's high time the community or environment of impact, whether there is extraction or pipeline is passing through there, make them stakeholders. At the end of the day, we are Nigerians. Try and also make sure the security agents you are going to give these drones and whatever are also ably supported on the ground. If it is in the riverine area, they should be supported by the communities there. If it is in the areas where the pipelines are passing, we should all be stakeholders. But the key thing and final one is, please, the government of this country should give the new team of NNPC a chance, a gestation period of reasonable years, so that we can see the dividend like Saudi Aramco of Saudi Arabia, Petrobras of Brazil, and Petronas of Malaysia. All right,
thank you very much, Mr. Balazaka, petroleum engineer, and of course, Mr. Shola Omolayo, social commentator, for your analysis, of course, on the next step NNPC is planning to protect pipelines in the country. Good morning to you.
Good morning.